Right, sorry about that. This is a massive logistical nightmare running this engine. Thank you for coming, those are here at the moment. We have to get so many little details done at the workshop before we even come down to where we run it, which is actually a farmer's silage bit, but it's got massive concrete sides, so it's great. So if there's a failure of the engine, it sort of contains the bits of metal going everywhere. We have to do a lot of prep, and it just caught up with us. And then some of the guys that were coming up from the Bristol end of the world just got delayed a bit. So apologies, I know we said 2 o'clock. It's gone that. It's coming up to 20 to 3 now. So I'm sorry. We'll try and make it up to you. Now, and I'll keep on saying this throughout the video. You know, there's a chance that this might not happen because things can go wrong quite quickly. And if it goes wrong, we'll shut it down, and it's been a waste of everyone's time. But there you go, that's what happens when you run something that was brought out of service in 2003. So anyway, there she is. That's the 593. There we go. It's alright, I'm selfie mode. So that's an engine from a Concorde aircraft, passenger aircraft, travelled at Mach 2.2, something like that. Quite quick. We've only just got here, but it's a lovely day, which is nice. There is a certain amount of setting up that we have to do. That will, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you all. I have to say comments, because I've got the sun glaring on the screen. I don't even know what I've got in shot, but I'll probably change that. Okay, so what we've got to do now, we've got, I'll go through everybody that's here, and we're going to do our best to keep our distances. Well, apparently there's me. So there's a delay. I reckon there's a 15-second delay from what I'm saying to where it's actually hitting you, but it's not a bad thing. So we've got a setup. We've got 2 air start hoses today because it requires a jet engine to start this jet engine. And let's show you a little bit of the business end. I don't know. Oh, there we go. Bit of the business end. That's actually the afterburner rail, but we don't have the afterburner unit, so we won't be running that today. So we're going to try, and because it's a pneumatic start engine, it requires a little jet to produce a compressed air that turns over the starter motor that starts this engine. And I'll try and move my finger from there. And what I'll do is we're going to try and get the APU that starts it as far away as possible. Reason being is that then you'll be able to hear the 593 start. The problem is the APU is so loud that you can't actually hear the Olympus until it gets up to about 25%, and that's not really the whole point of the exercise. So there we go, another bit of this. So I'm just going to go over a few bits. Okay, and I'm going to swap the camera around if it'll allow me. So John, anyone that looks at photos of the Mach Loop in North Wales, the chances are they're John's photos. Bit of an aviation nut. Bungie, BBC Outside Broadcasting engineer, or self-employed. Major gas turbine collector. Field Marshal Woolgar, Justin. Justin had a 747 engine in his garden, so it's sort of comparable to this. We used to run that quite regularly. It's now gone though, unfortunately. He doesn't like being on camera, so I don't know if you can tell. No, this is the main man. If it wasn't for him, it wouldn't be happening today. Paul. That's Anthony, and many much thankness goes to Anthony. And then we've got Paul, electronics engineer and gas turbine nut as well. Not a lot he can't make. He makes the machines that make microchips. That's what he does. So that's that. And this is the APU that we're going to use for starting the Concorde engine. And it's a Garrett. And you don't see these, but these are in the tail of your 737s and all that sort of thing. If you look at the back of an airliner, you'll see a little exhaust port. And that's what that is. That's where that engine sits. And the exhaust on this is that bit. And the air outlet here, there, that's the air outlet. A big hose, a couple of, well, we got two as I say, but that hose then connects onto that, then connects to the Olympus starter. Okay. This is Lee. Lee doesn't like being on camera, not in much. And we have another gas turbine collector, electronics nut, and that's John. John helps me out with loads of stuff. If I ever get stuck, I phone him up, and if I'm lucky enough for him to answer the phone. So let's go. I'm just going to make sure everybody's good on what they're doing, and I'll go over the engine. So bear with me. Right, so if we get the engine, the APU up by there, yeah, and then get the hoses out.
I was just thinking, Aid.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to have two hoses, if you have the sort of control area here, you're going to get done with jet blast. If you have them in the front of the engine, you could then have to bring the lorry forward a bit. I mean, back here.
Back a bit.
Yeah.
Well, I could come back a bit and to the side a bit, just so it's not so visible from the road.
You can't get the APU the other side of the...
I can just put a trailer across there if you want.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just, you know, just in case, isn't it?
Yeah, do you want me to put a trailer across there?
What about putting the APU the other side of the wall?
But if we need a shutdown or something...
I'll have to look over it, yeah. Have to establish some media communication.
I did think of that. But then the thing is, we're limited to, control electronics, we're going there. The APU, I mean, even you go here, it'll be all right, won't it?
Well, it's just the noise. I honestly don't mind. Just the noise does tend to spoil the video, the sound of the, you know, you might just get a better sound recording, that's all.
Can we put a barrier up for you? Do you want a barrier?
Well, all it is that because the APU is so noisy,
yeah,
you're still hearing the APU until it shuts down while that's running, because that's a low rumble, but the APU is screaming along.
Yeah.
So, Ian, why don't we see if the hoses join together first?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, you can send 10 out of the bucket. That's safe enough for them.
Yeah. Oh, it's not this particular thing. Nope. This isn't really a safety thing. It's more of a try and get the sound out. So I'll leave them to it for a minute. That'd be ace. Thank you, Anthony. So just in case, chap, if we can have that come up there and round, so if we do get forward motion, the cable's round the back of that, if that's all right. Right, so now people are saying, and you know, we're not in an aircraft and we're not going full power, we're going up to idle, which sounds not that impressive, but up to idle is quite a pokey thing really. But everyone says, oh, what about the cab when it's at the cabin? Well, it won't, but it is a concern because the input end, the compressor end, the end that sucks, which is there, I'll just go a bit closer. That end is a vacuum. So actually air is going into that from the sides, from in front, from everywhere. So it's not directional, so there's not a lot of force, and you can only really tell that that's there when you've been subject to it and when you're quite close. But when you feel a vacuum, it's too late, you're in the engine. So that's why we put a guard on it. So that's the sucky end, and the blowy end, as I showed before, is here. Let's go in a bit, get exposure. There we go, some of the turbine blades, they are probably, I don't know, 12-13 inches long each, and it's the low pressure stage, so that's where the hot gases come out. This frame here, all this is afterburner rail, so the fuel would come in through this pipe here. It's got a bend in it to allow for expansion. The whole thing is loose and wobbles to allow for thermal expansion. Fuel comes in here into this rail, and it's squirted upwind into the engine, but it hits, I don't know if you can see from the video, hits this curved conduit where it's vaporized into almost a gas, I guess. It's lit by a plasma igniter here, and if you've ever lit in a blowtorch on a windy day, it blows out. So it would be the same with this, but this is called the flame gutter, and that helps the flame is turbulence all around this, and that keeps the flame lit. So that's that. These pipes not used, even though we have the afterburner pipework and stuff there. Even though we've got all that, we don't actually have the afterburner tube where the petals at the back of the engine open and close depending on the power setting, etc. But that would double the length of the engine probably to here. Now, so even though we have the afterburner rail, we don't have the afterburner itself, so we can't run it with afterburner. Arguably, without the pressure the afterburner creates, even if you put fuel in and pumped it out and lit it, arguably it would just blow out, because it requires, I think it requires a certain amount of pressure to stay lit. So, a few other little bits and pieces, all stuff is happening. That's where the APU inlet is. So that goes through this big silver pipe at the back into the pneumatic starter, which is there. So that requires, I don't know, something like 250 air horsepower. So that is, and Concorde, when it was operational, didn't normally have an APU on board, had an emergency APU for starting in the early days, or for emergency electrical support, but basically required a APU on the ground to provide compressed air. Now the clever thing with these, with this, and along with some other Rolls-Royce Snecma engines, is that once you've started one engine, you can shut the APU down, and once that's shut down, you tap off some of the compressed air from the engine and use that to start the other engines. So once you've got one engine running, the others will also shut down. So that's it, that side. There are a few things on this that are there that we're not making use of. I'm not sure if it's this side or the other side. I think, let me check, no, it's the other side. There's a valve the other side, I'll come to it in a minute. It looks like that. Is for anti-icing, but it's the other side, it looks like that. These things on the front here, let's get that out of the way. For fire suppression, when it's inside the aircraft, haven't got that plumbed up. Not a lot of point, because it would just go outwards, wouldn't go down the length of the engine. Although you may get an induced airflow. There's our fuel tank, which is about 120 litres. So we'll be using all of that just to get the engine up and running. And then it'll probably run at whatever percent for tens of seconds, and then we'll be out of fuel. High energy ignition box, that big long thing there, that's your oil tank. That's the fuel filter I've added into the low pressure fuel pump there. Then we got fuel control unit, afterburner control and flow rates are inside all that. This is the box that I made to interface all the cables to the control panel. And there's some of the wiring there. Okay. There's a few things, like some additions that I've put on. So one addition is this valve here. which is, this is the fuel outlet from the fuel pump and the fuel control unit, and it goes up here to the top, then back down into these fuel rails, into the injectors here. So one of the questions was, what happens if we get, I mean, it's an old engine. I haven't stripped it down to its component form. You know, you could argue it's a risky thing to do, but you know, it's not going in a plane and all the rest of it. But as a feature, a safety feature, what I've done, that was a blank there originally, and what I've done is put a valve on, so the high pressure fuel's going up there to the injectors. And what I've done here is put on a open close valve. It's currently closed, so when the engine's running, fuel has to go up the pipe into the injectors. Now what we do, we put a bit of rope around this and attach it to a static point. Should the lorry move forwards, it opens a valve up. It doesn't take any intervention of anybody to do, although they can pull the rope as well if they need to, and all that pressure is then diverted to that valve. It's opened and it just spills back to a tank, so basically it naturally then stops itself. That's should we get a runaway for whatever reason.
I'm going to get two hoses on.
Two hoses won't go.
Can't connect them. They're both they've both got flanges on each side, and a V-band clamp won't
Go around it.
won't clamp.
So basically it needs a female adapter, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't think you've got anything like that.
No.
So we'll have to use the one hose.
So we'll go back to the old standard. So where's Ian going to go? Just
Bring it a bit forward, I think. We'll have to bring him like what we did last time.
okay. All right. Yeah. Lee and John.
Yep.
The loom that goes to the engine, we're going to just run the trailer up.
Okay, let's get that out of the way.
Yeah, and I would still argue, if we can, rather than having coils,
Just-
move further back as well,
Okay, yep.
if you can.
We're just going to use one hose then.
Yeah, yeah. We'll use the one hose and put the APU where the control panel is now. And I'll go into the control panel now. So one of the things with aircraft engines and things like that, or anything that goes in the air, they don't usually just use 24, 28 volts DC. That'd be far too easy. They use AC. And AC is a bit weird. It sort of works like DC, but it has the properties that you can change the voltage and all sorts. But it means you need a inverter. So I had to get this box from America, and that box there that John's just unplugging now is a 28 volt to 115 volt 400 cycle AC inverter, which is what that engine and many other aircraft engines, or aircraft themselves in fact, need to operate.
Yeah.
So I'll come back to the control panel in a mo. I guess if we can have it without the cable being tight,
Yep.
as long as we can get away, if that makes sense. And I'll just come over here. So this is your APU hose. So that's the hose that goes from the APU to the engine, and we were hoping we could double that and increase the length separation from the APU to the Olympus, but that's not going to happen, so I'll just put it back together. And then this is Ian prepping his APU, and that, by the way, is a very nice and shiny example of an APU. There's not many that are quite that nice. I'll show you the control panel shortly when he has his test crank over, just check it all works. So that's that. Again, sorry about the delay. One of these things with when you play with jets, that's perfect. That's perfect. One of these things with jets is that you can't rush yourself. You've got to take your time and just make sure everything's right, because if this goes wrong, it's not very pleasant what happens. So we may have been there a couple of times in the past, distant future. You know what I mean. So there we go. So when I've got something as rare as a Concorde Olympus 593 engine, it's hard to move around. So I did have an old black lorry that I used at home, just basically moving it around, fitted it on the lorry and moved it around, because how do you move something like that around when you don't have a forklift truck that can do 5 ton or whatever it is assembled? So I got this lorry, and then got a buddy of mine, Anthony at Euro Horse Boxes, to do some body paneling for me, and he knows all the right people as well. We've got a nice spray job on it, and I think it does justice to the engine somewhat. So thank you to him. It's all part of the hobby. There he is. He stuck that on without asking me. I can't believe the nerve, honestly. Anyway, he stuck that on. But there we go. And what I might well do in a moment is hand you over to one of the other chaps. And they will do a bit of videoing while I just get involved with this a little bit more. So just for your information, that fuel tank filled up, say about 120 litres. It's a DAF fuel tank, but with a camber. I don't know if you can see that. Low pressure fuel pump. That provides fuel pressure by the filter, low pressure engine pump. It's also got a fuel level sender in it, so I don't really want to run the fuel pumps dry by accident, so that's in there as well. Right, John, would you mind doing the honours for a minute while I just go and do some stuff?
Absolutely.
You can give a running commentary. Don't get too complicated.
At the moment we're just waiting for the APU to be moved. Then we'll connect back up the control panel and wire it to the engine again.
With the handle.
It's the air delivery pipe for the starter. It's just located in here.
But I've got them over a period of time, so of course if I went to sell them, it'd be worth the fight.
Right, where do you want the trailer then? We have to turn it round. Might have four-wheel drive or
closer to the engine.
The thing is, you have your exhaust going into it. Yeah. Well, that's all right, they've got plenty of hose to come round anyway.
Alright, so if you want it, where do you want it?
Well, I reckon.
Maybe you can put it on the other side, it's a bit fast. The exhaust will be going. You want your control to do this side of the exhaust, don't you?
There he is. Everyone else on top gear and fifth gear turned up in Ferraris. There's not anything wrong with the Clio. What about going that side, eh?
I'm easy, don't mind.
So, I mean, you get further away, eh? Here?
Yeah?
We've not tried that before.
Last time we did it, I can't really run down.
No. Well, you normally switch it off anyway.
Okay, so go that way, you can steer.
You've got a fucking disease elbow anyway, yeah?
Alright.
Right, Jimmy?
How's it going? Alright.
Introduce the live screen to Mr. Jimmy DeVille.
Alright, everyone, see that big. There's Justin, look. Forget me. Alright.
The engine looks huge next to him.
Oh, it's not. How's it going? Alright, we're doing what we're touching.
We're not allowed to touch anymore. Stay back. Stay
You
back.
can do what you want, just not in front of the camera.
Different photo.
Specially built. Testo. This is Testo free.
So, is that the cushion? Buffer right there. Calculating. Let's take 1 minute.
I think 7 or 8 years they've been doing that, so. We're excited, isn't it?
A lot of careful calculation going on.
Yeah. So if you wanted to fire that off, you could bring that further this way and put some across there.
Move the lorry across.
him.
No, I thought you talking to me.
No, no, no. Right, I'd rather take.
For the people that are just joining us, we're just setting up for a run of the Olympus. See the APU trailer off to the right hand side, Olympus in the centre, and Lee just wiring up the control panel.
So what we should do now, you know our emergency off-road? I've got 10 metres, and I've got some Dyneema stuff now, but we haven't got anything solid to put it to. Something small and heavy. We're live, you know.
I know.
Are you pointing at the old chap? Guys, I'm just going to test back. Just leave the fuel on. Okay.
emergency shut-off, which is a rope that connects to a valve on the HP side of the fuel pump. So in the event of any problem, such as the engine moving, it will automatically shut itself off by closing the fuel.
dyneema. I've got to be careful what I say because Catherine might be watching. It's not cheap, bro. Could you go and close the valve? Well, Freddie and Amelia are both at home, so it's just staying with them. John, shall I explain this?
Yep.
This is what I was talking about earlier. For whatever reason, fault user error. It suddenly goes low power, it's going to go forwards. It's not producing a lot, still producing thrust, but not a lot of thrust when we're running it. But if it jumps over the wheel stops, you might find most people are running in the opposite direction if it goes to high power. So that valve that I put in the fuel system that automatically shuts off, should the lorry move forward, that lever, emergency valve is connected to this bit of dyneema rope, to the sleeper. So what it does, it opens the valve and all that fuel pressure in the fuel lines gets pumped into that container that will be connected to the drains and the pipes, and then shut down the engine. So it's not great, but in theory it stops. That's one bit of safety. Of course, even if it doesn't move forward, if there's an issue, you can pull the rope and it'll shut down should the electronics fail or something like that. That's that. We're not getting far off, so it'll be a test of the APU shortly, test of the control panel electronics, and I'll go over that in a minute. Ear defenders on, a little bit of a safety brief, and then we'll go for a run.
Tank for this. Is there a tank for that? This other hose.
There we go. That one's only going to come on it, the line.
labelled it.
You're supposed to, you know, you had it right. It's tune load.
SWR.
I know current. I know volts. I know
Paul
current.
says that's modulation level. You mustn't go exceed 100%.
Yeah, well,
more.
of course. It's common sense, isn't it? Yeah, it's fully modulated. Here we are, just a quiet contemplation before the main event. As we all collect our thoughts. It's a windy open. He sends the ball on. It's going in the right direction. Yeah, he's got it. He's got the championship.
It's got a modulation level meter.
That's the firing signal. Just get back to you then, do us a nice mural.
Yeah, good. You?
Are we going to be pulling faces in a minute, John?
Yeah.
Are we going to be pulling faces and running that way? That is the question. Are there going to be big faces and running that way? So the last time I was here and we ran this, fair to say, John, wouldn't it, that things didn't go quite as we imagined?
A little bit more exciting than...
We don't mention what happened, but what actually, I seem to remember, took 8 seconds, felt like it took a minute and a half, and we thought the world was about to implode. Let's just put it that way. It's amazing how quickly 60 litres of fuel can empty. Yeah, so this is the first time I'm hopefully going to see it run perfectly well. So I'm buzzing. Yeah. Let's hope for no 15-foot flames.
If there's a problem that we can't see outside, you tell us and likewise. Obviously the start and control, the starting of the Olympus is by the APU, which is under Ian's control. The running of the Olympus for this run is by that control panel on this side, which I'll do. I'll have everyone else keep an eyeball to the things that are going wrong, that we're probably too occupied to look at. If there's a problem and you can't get my attention and you're this side, pull the red rope, and that's fill the fuel and shut the engine down. Not ideal, but it is a good safety measure. If it goes to starts to go to a high power setting and the lorry starts to move forward, hopefully that will do it. But hopefully we'll know that the throttle's going up before that point happens.
Hey, you give a signal if you're not happy with that. Too slow. I actually already got your fly on that. You're ready to take them off.
So, if something goes wrong, it's that. It's like the international distress. I think that's probably the maritime one. And everyone keep an eyeball. If anyone's not happy, give a shout and we'll shut it down, because we've only got that one, and we've only got that one, and we've only got one of you, so we don't want to be minus anything. We all know it gets a bit breezy. Fortunately today we are starting into the wind, so all the hot air will be going that way. Do we worry about anyone else coming in to the gates? Is there likely to be anyone coming in? To be fair, they're far enough away, but... any concerns, questions?
I'll give you thumbs up when you got the air. You'll see the pipe go up anyway.
So as soon as I got the thumbs up, the air will be primed, the pipe will be primed.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Once the engine's running, I'll give you a thumbs up back.
Yeah.
So you know that you can start the shutdown sequence. I have got a lead on that at some point that can come over to you. Control. So, do you want to do a run of the APU first? Just check
I'm
that
doing all right. Give it a little bit longer than normal, but it should be okay.
Okay. Is everyone there?
Policy, you're on your own.
What's that?
If you're in wrong, you're on your own. Insurance policy is don't stay on me.
So what's the formal name of the test cell? Cell 3. Located up where was it? Cell 3 today. Previous run, we've been over 1 and 2. What cell 1 was not a scary run. Cell 2 was also. Are we all good? Yeah. All good? Right, so let's go. Yeah.
You're going to do a test of the igniters and valves first?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ian. Hey. I'm just going to check the air valve and igniters and that first, and I'll give you the thumbs up to go.
Okay, it's going to be live at this world's only running Concorde engine test run. We're about to fire it up. Starts when that APU there gets air down the pipe into here, starts its running, and then this thing is actually going to make a very big, loud noise, and we'll have the world's only running Concorde engine. So it's about to get lively. Here we go.
Can you hear that, eh?
I recognise this gentleman from Engine Addict. Me and Aid did the jet boat on that,
How'd you do?
and Aid is there doing the control. Right across, Aid.
It's the air starter on the side. Okay, that's good. Lee, can you check the HP cop, which is just to the left of the metal box?
Down there.
HP cop, Lee. Yeah, that's good. Start fuel, fuel pump, converter. After you're in. Right, John?
Yep, good.
Just a click is what I heard. I didn't see any movement.
That's what it does, yeah.
Oh, Just go, if you go and look at the throttle actuator underneath, just check it's anti-clockwise before I start.
If things go wrong, and that brake gets pulled, obviously with the power you can generate, it is a little bit nervous. And lots of people just,
I'll do, okay.
watching to make sure everything's happy.
You guys alright?
So that little one there just did 120. Obviously, the truck did 540. So a little bit so that was 65%, which is idle. And that run, whatever length it was a bit slow to start because I lost my bottom, being honest, because it's quite scary. But that was 120 litres in that run, and we did go up to idle. Well, because there's a thing called devo, that's another thing. But the last probably 20 seconds was an idle lap. What percentage must you go to, mate? 65%, which is idle. 65%, okay. So that's slightly nerve-wracking. So we'll let it cool down. Everything did its job. Of course, it helps when you connect the fuel hose at the beginning. So that was my bad. Trying to do too many things, I think. So that's 65%. We'll fill it up again. We've got another run the same there, plus a little bit. And we'll do that. But we'll let the engine cool down and get our nerves back firstly, I think. So, pretty good. All good. Right, so I'll take over and get you in it. So there we go. Thank you. That was your host for today. Well, for now, that's
Thanks
John.
for watching, guys.
So he's quite a good cameraman, really, as opposed to well, we won't go there. So you put yourself right in that. Oh man, you got a face full of dust now.
Yeah, grit. Well, I'm waiting for you to turn it down. I'll go now, and then you turned it up, and I was stuck there. I was like, stop that. Adrian. Well done,
Oh shucks.
everyone should take the brakes off next time.
Yeah. Oh, I can't believe didn't plug the fuel in. That was just cuckoo. What do you think, John? So, not many, well, a handful of people that can get that close to a running Concorde engine. So, oh, I'll tell you what, I'll turn the fuel booster pump off now. That'll be a good idea. Fuel boost pump. Thank you very much. So, what I'm going to do now is just set the cap statically so we can all have a break, and then we'll refill the fuel tank with some more Jet A1 fuel. Yeah, we'll do our photo as well, and
Sweet as a nut, eh? Just ran so smoothly.
it's nice, isn't it? It's all right. I've configured it so I can't, with the throttle, go to 100% because it hasn't got the propelling nozzle, and it was just over. Yeah.
But that was just made me get all again.
Right. Well, somebody's just asked, can I give a commentary to what everyone does? So, right. So the commentary goes like this: he's the presenter, he's the cameraman, he's the footballer. Oh, beg your pardon, sir. He's the Test L3 owner. He's the APU operator. We're not allowed to say what he does because he's awesome. Justin. Well, if there was tea making facilities, that'd be Justin. No, Justin's the guy that had the 747 engine. He's very experienced in big engines, so always good to be on the team. Paul, electronics guy, all contributed to this project. John, electronics. Lee's got his own jet funny car that you might see at Santa Pod and the like occasionally. Rain of Fire, should you be interested, that's Lee's jet car. Yeah. Right, so
Here we go. I'm just going to do a scan over the engine now. So it's a nice warm breeze coming from that, which is quite pleasant. If there is any questions, I can see the screen now, and now might be the time to ask, because we've totally ignored the questions, to be fair, and it's not intentionally, it's just we've all got lots of stuff to do. Will she ever run at full power? Right, so the problem that we have there is that the primary nozzle, the afterburner nozzle, the bits that go on the back of that engine there, we don't have them, and it seems that most of the time they're part of the airframe. And if we had one, it'd be sticking out of the back of the lorry almost as much as the engine is as it is at the moment, or thereabouts, maybe not quite. Would I be able to run it with a full reheat on the back of the lorry? No, everything would break and it'd be awful. And it's kind of not what I'm about, really, because then that becomes, I've spent 8 years on this, a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort. Very understanding wife, considering the hobby that I do. Yeah, this is without major financial investment. I can't do any more, really, and I'm quite happy with what I've done, to be honest. Are we doing another run today? Yes, we are. Because the engine's now warm inside, all the shafts are hot. They're not going to cool down in the time frame that we have today, so I will have to debow it again. But we will start refueling. So I'm going to ask these two, could you do a refuel for me, please? The step up is in the back of the van. And if we can fill her up again, if that's all right. So Ian, how many litres of fuel do you think you used on that?
It used about, it was 2/3, it used about a third of the tank.
20 litres.
Probably about 1 jerry can, or something like that.
I've had that question. It's not there. That's still part of the airplane usually. So
The pipework's there, is it?
the pipework's there, yeah, for the fuel side, but the pedals that close in and out at the back, they're all still missing. But yeah. So there we go. Sorry? In ignition, sorry, Lee. So this engine, many of you will know this, came from Bruntingthorpe Airfield. I took it off Dave Walton's hands. I think Dave was more into aircraft than bits of aircraft, and it was sat there and looking quite sorry for itself. And yeah, I took it off his hands. I said I'd get it running. 8 and a bit years later, I got it running. But I've had to sell. I've got a personal collection of jets, and I've had to sell quite a lot of them to fund this project. But there we go. That's what happened. But I think it was a worthy cause. So nothing too technical about putting jerry cans of Jet A1 fuel. Jet A1 is what they use in a lot of commercial aircraft, jet powered aircraft. So we're running it on the right stuff. But I'm sure this engine, because we're not going in the skies or flying, we're not too worried about it icing up. So I'd happily run it on heating kerosene or paraffin or something like that. I don't suppose you're really meant to, but then, you know, when it's flying, you want to know it's 100%, don't you? So that's that. Could it be run side by side with a Vulcan engine? Well, you need a Vulcan engine that can be run side by side, firstly, and I don't have one. So, and I don't know why you would want to, really. two unique pieces of engineering. Obviously, a Vulcan Olympus is got the same name as a Concorde Olympus, but essentially they're different engines. This is quite, I think it was the world's first fly-by-wire aircraft engine. And the Vulcan is a I lost my train of thought. Too many things in my head. How's it looking?
It's fine. There's a little bit of oil been whipped round.
Where?
If you look at the bottom, and then just at the wall closest to you, which you probably can't see from that angle.
To be fair, that's probably DD40.
Yeah.
But it might not be.
You often get a bit of that though in the compressor.
Yeah, and when there's oil, but you've not got your revs up, and the pressures aren't there. The lab seals need a bit of pressure to start working. So if you, what's your website, Justin? Is it jetpropulsion.co.uk? Yeah, so if you go to that, you'll see Justin's 747 engine.
Which we used to run a few years ago.
Yeah, that was a beast. That was an eye-opener. And that's what got me into bigger engines like this one. How many hours were on the engine? Don't have paperwork, unfortunately. There's a lot of stories about it. The story I've heard is that it came from Rolls-Royce at 0 hours after a refurb, and then around 2003 when it was decommissioned, and it was at that point that it went over to Dave Walton's at Buntingthorpe, sat outside under a tarpaulin for 8 years, and then it comes over to my place, and that's when I started working on it. I spent the first year trying to source information and help, which was quite a mission, because a lot of the BA folks, I don't know whether they were told not to talk to me or what, but understandably they want to keep their jobs, so I had to pretty much work it out by myself, but with some exceptions, so, and thank you to them. Right, so we're not going to be far off another run, for those of you that are interested. Is it a fully restored engine? Well, if it was, it's not now. I have spent a lot of time and money sourcing bits and pieces that had water ingress and a bit of corrosion here and there. I'm not an Olympus engineer, but I have probably run, or fiddled with, I think is the correct term, restored probably 40 plus different gas turbine engines. Had no formal training on any of them, so that's probably quite frowned upon, but the point with this hobby is that they're not going in the air. If that was fitted to a plane and I touched it, I wouldn't want to go in the plane. On the ground, it's a bit of a different matter. So, all good?
Yep. Need a little bit of blue roll.
Okay, that's part and parcel. Right. That's the face of concentration. That
I'm trying to use technology. Forget your Olympus engines. I'm trying to use Facebook.
bulb run.
They are, yeah, actually. This is brown and these black ones. Yeah, the casing's brown.
There we go. Now, all is special. and he'll take a big jet engine and the generator that is attached to the end of it to light some light bulbs. Where are the light bulbs?
They're on the way.
We always have to light some light bulbs as a test for the generator because it puts it under load and it's a visual sign that everything's working fine. So I think he'll be doing that in shortly. Meanwhile, we're just letting the engine cool down a bit. There is a procedure with the Olympus. If it starts getting warm, if it's been run, and there'll be plenty of you that will correct me, I'm sure, if it's run and it's warm, the shaft, the shaft that runs the entire length of the engine bows because it's not running and there's heat ingress and heat absorption and all sorts of stuff. So when you run an Olympus that has been run or is warm, you do a procedure called debow, and debow is where you run it at 35% for 1 minute, which helps the bearings and the shaft and everything all settle down and go straight. Then you take it up to 70%, which is 5% above idle, to go over idle, and then back down to 65% idle for it to, and that's what you would see Concorde when it first starts up on the ground or is about to taxi away. That's the state it would be in idle power. I'm not sure how much thrust this is producing without propelling nozzle at the back. I'm guessing maybe, and it is a guess, about 2 ton. So a couple of other little things that we're doing. While I'm talking about it, this little device here is a fuel flow meter, and there's one similar just a bit further inside, which is the afterburner fuel flow meter. And it is a reluctance probe on a magnet, I think, that picks up the fuel flow rate. Now, really, this next one I'm going to put my multimeter on that and see if we can get a pulse from it. And then I will get an electronic circuit made that will display fuel flow on the control panel. And then the other thing is this reluctance probe, inductance probe here, that actually tells you whether the fuel valve is on or off. Now I've got a visual indicator of the switch state, and there's the HP fuel valve on and off, and it's shown by that inductance probe that goes to that. But I don't know what the inductance measurements are, so and I don't have a meter to measure that with us because that was the last minute. Oh, we could do that today. Oh, we can't because we don't have an inductance meter. So my multimeter doesn't do that. So that's something for the future, and that'll be another amendment to the APU, to the Olympus. Right. Okay, so if I go over here, John, you're right. Take over again for a bit.
Yep.
And feel free if you see any questions, just put those on the floor. If you see any questions, you can answer.
Okay.
I don't know about you, John. I got 30 comments, Aid, come up. I was too much.
It's like the old Blackadder one, isn't it?
Yeah.
If anything goes wrong, jump 300 foot in the air and scatter yourself over a wide area. Yeah.
If it died, start it.
I'm making you all this money.
Just one night. She's put the other 2 in, and you only bring 1. And in that box on the back of the trailer. See your car. In the van.
How many have you got on your face?
How many of these measure?
19 people on stream.
Yeah, get my cock out. I don't want to look.
Why has he had nearly 1,000 views already? I'm far better looking. Right, in. What's the plan? Yes. Okay. Hang on, but is that before? That's not the old view right there, is it?
Yeah, that's the old exhaust. And that's half some of it goes to the, it's supposed to be the generator. I don't know where they are then, I don't know. Did you put them in your three? Put them in the 8-inch fan? No, this one.
Is that rather serious power resistor, Paul?
Ian's going to start the APU. Paul's got some light bulbs, which is their way, because they don't run the APU that often, because it's noisy and whatever. Putting some light bulbs, a lot of high power light bulbs in series, puts the generator at the low. It's just 2 minutes away of checking that the electronics of the generator works.
Let's go, we
In a minute. So he's going to run it, warm it up, light the light bulbs, which are big, powerful light bulbs, shut the lights off, put air down to the engine, then we're going for an engine run. There we go. Thank you very much.
working. Once that's happened, we're going to be in a fine confidence again. So this is one thing. John, do you know the spec of this
Oh. I think we've just run out of battery. Just turned itself off.
Just tell Rich on the kind of